For over a century, scientists told us the story of human evolution as though it were carved in stone, a straight path leading from primitive apes to modern people. But what if that story has been wrong for more than 100 years? In 2010, a single finger bone found in a Siberian cave revealed an entire lost species, the Denisovans, rewriting the textbooks overnight. Ancient DNA now shows our family tree isn't a ladder, it's a tangled forest of species that lived, loved, and interbred. The question is, if one fragment could overturn everything, what else is still waiting to be uncovered? For more than a century, the story of human evolution was told with a sense of certainty, as if it were a neatly written script carved into stone. A simple tale of progress from ape-like ancestors to upright modern people. And for generations, we accepted the famous image of the stooped figure slowly straightening into the human we recognize today, a ladder that felt reassuringly orderly, inevitable and complete, yet as discoveries piled up, that clean picture began to fracture. And now the deeper we look, the more suspense grows, for the truth is not a straight line at all, but a maze filled with hidden passages and unexpected encounters. In 2010, a bone fragment no larger than a fingernail was found in the Denisova cave of Siberia, so unremarkable that it might have been dismissed as debris. But when scientists extracted and sequenced its DNA, the results sent shockwaves through anthropology because it belonged not to Neanderthals, nor to Homo sapiens, but to something else entirely, a species of humans unknown to science, quickly named the Denisovans. And that single bone shattered the ladder of evolution, revealing that our past is more like a forest where branches twist, overlap, and sometimes rejoin. And the shock deepened when researchers discovered that Denisovans were not lost in isolation, for their genetic code still lingers in millions of people today, shaping lungs that breathe thin air in Tibet, bolstering immune systems across Oceania, and proving that these hidden relatives are not just ancient shadows but living presences within us. And if such a species could hide for so long, how many others might be buried under untouched soil or locked in frozen permafrost? The suspense is alive in every excavation, every cave wall, every bone fragment, because each could tell us that what we thought we knew for 100 years was incomplete or even wrong. And this unease only grows as further evidence comes to light, like the discovery of Homo floresiensis, the so-called hobbits of Indonesia, standing barely over a meter tall, who survived until just tens of thousands of years ago on an island while our species was spreading across the globe, or the more recent revelation of Homo naledi in South Africa, with brains smaller than half of ours, yet displaying evidence of ritualistic behavior that many once believed required modern intelligence. And suddenly the old categories of primitive and advanced begin to blur, raising the unnerving possibility that intelligence and culture were not unique gifts reserved for us alone, but sparks that flickered in many human lineages, some that vanished before history even began. The suspense builds because science now shows that Homo sapiens did not stride confidently into the world as solitary heirs to evolution, but instead shared it with cousins, rivals, and partners, sometimes fighting, sometimes interbreeding, leaving traces of themselves behind in the very bloodstreams of their future competitors. And every genetic study reveals more ghosts walking beside us, from Neanderthals who left their mark in skin tone and immune responses to Denisovans who adapted us for mountains, proving that the modern human body is a mosaic crafted by encounters with those who no longer exist. A living testament that we are not the end of the story, but one chapter in a book still unfolding. And yet, even with these breakthroughs, the greatest suspense lies in what we do not know. For caves still sealed off by ice may hold paintings that shift our understanding of thought and creativity. Deserts may conceal skeletons of species whose names have never been spoken. And the soil itself holds DNA fragments that technology has only just learned to read, a record of invisible lives layered beneath our feet. Meaning the question is not whether new revelations will come, but how radically they will alter the story once again. Because if a century of certainty could be overturned by a single sliver of bone, then the next discovery could just as easily reveal that even today's tangled forest is only a fraction of the truth. And perhaps, as we dig deeper, we will learn that humanity's story is not one of steady triumph, but of survival through chance, cooperation, and encounters with others who were almost us, Yet not quite, and the suspense of it all is that somewhere, hidden under rock, ice, or sand, the next fragment already waits to remind us how little we truly know about who we are. The further the story unfolds, the more it feels less like a history lesson and more like a mystery novel, one where the clues are scattered across caves, deserts, and mountains, each fragment daring us to rethink what we thought we knew for more than a century. Because every fossil and every strand of ancient DNA tells us the same unsettling thing: humanity's past is not simple, not linear, not certain. When the first Neanderthal skull was uncovered in the mid-19th century, it was treated as a curiosity, even mocked as proof of brutish creatures unworthy of being called human. Yet today we know that Neanderthals were anything but mindless. They made tools with precision, they used fire, they buried their dead, and perhaps they even strung beads and painted cave walls, signs of thought and creativity that mirror our own. For decades they were portrayed as our failed cousins, destined for extinction while we march triumphantly forward. But the more evidence emerges, the more that story cracks. They lived in Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, surviving ice ages that would have crushed less resilient species. And when Homo sapiens finally arrived on the scene, the encounter was not a simple replacement, it was an exchange. We carry 1 to 2% of their DNA in our genomes today, evidence of meetings that were not only violent but intimate, shaping who we are at the cellular level. And if Neanderthals were capable of symbolic art and complex survival, then what of the Denisovans, whose very existence was unknown until a sliver of bone gave them back their name? Their genetic fingerprints stretch across Asia, in the breath of high-altitude dwellers in the immune systems of island peoples, their legacy alive though their bones are almost absent, like ghosts who refuse to vanish. What else lies hidden, waiting for us to stumble upon it? Ghost lineages with no fossils, no tools, no caves, only whispers of DNA that reveal encounters with humans we cannot yet name, shadowy populations that lived and vanished without leaving their story written in stone. The suspense grows sharper when we step back and realize that we, modern humans, are only a fraction of what once was. On the island of Flores, skeletons of Homo floresiensis tell us of tiny people barely over a meter tall who hunted and lived until perhaps only 50,000 years ago, a blink in evolutionary time, while in the Philippines the discovery of Homo luzonensis added yet another surprising branch, each find reminding us that the world we inherited was once crowded with many forms of humanity, some small, some robust, some inventive, all navigating the same harsh environments. What does it mean that for most of history we were not alone? What does it say about us that now we are? And then there are the sudden brushes with catastrophe, like the eruption of Mount Toba some 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano that darkened skies, cooled the planet, and may have reduced human populations to only a few thousand, a razor's edge of survival on which our entire future balanced. If that eruption had been just a little more severe, or if survival had depended on a slightly different genetic inheritance, perhaps we would not be here at all, and some other lineage would be telling their story instead. These realizations are not just academic, they carry the weight of existential questions, forcing us to see ourselves not as the inevitable pinnacle of progress, but as survivors of chance, of hybrid encounters, of catastrophes narrowly escaped. The soil still holds secrets we have not yet touched. DNA fragments preserved in caves, tools buried under shifting deserts, even footprints captured in hardened mud that show children and adults walking together tens of thousands of years ago, as alive and real as any family today. With every discovery, the ground seems to whisper that what we know is temporary, fragile, and incomplete, that the story written in our textbooks is only a draft. And the suspense does not end with the past. For technology now allows us to sequence genomes from mere traces, and with each new study, ghost species emerge, some contributing up to 10% of the DNA in populations long assumed to be solely Homo sapiens, leaving us to wonder how many other meetings shaped us, how many other species lived alongside us, how many entire worlds have vanished into silence. The thought lingers, perhaps the biggest discovery has not yet been made. Perhaps beneath ice caps, within sealed caves, Or, under the shifting sands of deserts, the remains of another species wait. One that could append our story yet again. If a single fragment of bone could unravel a century of certainty, then what will the next fragment do? That is the suspense that drives this story forward, the knowledge that the past is not finished, that it is alive, unpredictable, and full of revelations we cannot yet see. The closer we draw to the present, the more the line between what we know and what we still long to uncover begins to blur. Because every new discovery not only fills a gap, but also opens 10 more. And the suspense of human origins is that it is not a finished tale, but one still unfolding with every excavation and every technological leap. Footprints discovered in White Sands, New Mexico, suggest that humans walked across North America far earlier than once believed, tens of thousands of years before the accepted timelines, forcing us to question when our species truly arrived in new lands. While in the caves of Spain and France, red ochre markings older than 60,000 years whisper that Neanderthals themselves may have painted long before. Homo sapiens even reached Europe, leaving behind symbols that speak of thought, intention, and meaning. Each revelation erodes the old certainties and replaces them with wonder, reminding us that what we took for granted may have been wrong for more than a century, and that the very definition of human has always been broader, more flexible, and more mysterious than we imagined. Even our genetic code tells us of meetings with ancestors we cannot name, ghost populations whose DNA lives within us but whose bones have never been seen, and as techniques improve, scientists now talk about finding entire species written invisibly in sediments and soils, meaning that caves may tell stories without a single skeleton, only molecules whispering from the earth. Yet for all our science, what remains most haunting is the thought that countless species may have lived and died without leaving any trace at all. Whole chapters of the human story erased, their voices gone, their inventions lost, their faces never to be reconstructed, and still the suspense lingers in the possibility that one day a fragment, a tooth, a tool, or even a handful of soil could restore them to history. Perhaps even more unsettling is the realization that survival was never a guarantee, that we outlasted our cousins not necessarily because we were smarter or stronger, but perhaps because of chance, because of an environmental shift, or because of a fragile advantage passed through interbreeding at just the right moment. And if that is true, then our dominance on this planet is not the inevitable result of perfection, but the delicate outcome of chance encounters and near extinctions. This understanding should humble us, but it also electrifies our imagination, because it means the next discovery could overturn everything once more. And in that possibility lies the same thrill that has driven explorers and scientists into caves, across deserts and through jungles for generations. As we stand here in the modern world, surrounded by skyscrapers and technology, we are still connected by blood to the shadows of the past, still carrying in our veins the signatures of Neanderthals and Denisovans, still shaped by ancient catastrophes and migrations, and still, unknowingly, guided by genetic legacies gifted from people who vanished long before history began. The suspense is not only in uncovering where we came from, but in realizing that we may never hold the full picture, that humanity's story is too vast, too tangled, too fragile to ever be complete. And yet that very incompleteness keeps us searching, keeps us questioning, keeps us digging deeper. And so we end not with certainty, but with curiosity, because the true power of these discoveries is not that they close the book, but that they open it wider, forcing us to confront mysteries we never thought to ask, reminding us that every time the ground yields a bone or a cave wall reveals its art, we are given a glimpse not just of the past but of ourselves. And as long as questions remain questions about hidden ancestors, about lost species, about the very nature of what it means to be human, the suspense will remain alive, urging us forward into the unknown, because the greatest discovery may still be waiting beneath our feet, waiting to tell us once again that the story we thought was settled 100 years ago is only just beginning. And if you want to walk further into this mystery, if you want to keep following the threads of humanity's tangled past and uncovering the secrets that lie ahead, then stay with us, share this journey, subscribe, and keep your curiosity alive, because the next revelation might be closer than we think, and it just might change everything we know about ourselves.